Hello, you're watching Razzmatazz with Rashi, and today we have with us Neil De Silva. He's an author, a screenwriter, a speaker, a writing coach. He has written 12 books till now, and some of his books are also moving to the screens. So, in this episode, we'll get to know a lot more about Neil, his books, his fitness journey, and his life. Welcome, Neil. How are you?
Thank you so much, Rashi, for having me on your show. And you just told me that you have been doing this for 4 years. We
Yeah.
really need people like you to push the writing community forward because
Thank you. Thank you so
uh,
much.
we are at a loss when it comes to how to talk about ourselves. So platforms
Yes.
such as these become very important. They become a
Thank
kind of a place where we can talk to our readers,
Yes, exactly.
let people
That
know
was the
who we
whole
are.
point of starting this because when I came up with my like first ebook and there were like many bloggers interviewing authors on their blogs, but there was no like a video platform where we can come and talk about the books. So that's how I just sort of coming up with and it's running fine. So
Yeah,
it's going
pretty
on.
excited to talk to you today. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see how this goes.
So before we move forward, I'd like to tell the viewers that we'll end this episode with a question. And if you give the correct answer in the comments below, you stand a chance to win the mega prizes at the end of the season. Also, you'll get the answer in this episode itself. So watch carefully and don't forget to subscribe before you participate. So, yes, Neil, so tell us something about yourself and about all the interesting things that you do.
Okay, so I'll keep it short and talk about my writing stuff
Sure.
because I've done a lot of things even before. So, writing actively, I started in 2015. I mean,
Okay.
as an author, I was born then. I have been
Mhm.
writing for forever.
Yeah.
Even as a child, I used to write stuff.
Okay.
But my first novel, Maya's New Husband, it came to me as a very strong idea when I was on kind of a vacation. I
Mhm.
had this very strong idea that I have to write this story, otherwise something in my
Okay.
life will remain incomplete.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's
That's
how
the motivating
I
thing.
wrote this story. It was like a calling.
Yeah.
So I had to write it. I finished the story within the NaNoWriMo month of 2014,
Okay. Yeah.
and I self-published it in 2015 on 1st
Mhm.
January, I think. Suppose the book
Mhm.
did well.
Yeah.
A lot of readers appreciated it. The book stayed on number one
Mhm.
on Amazon India Horror for a long time. And things started rolling for me because an initial
Okay.
success is always the biggest motivating factor.
Yes,
So
definitely.
I came to know that okay, I can write and people like to read the kinds of things that I'm writing. So then
Mhm.
I started writing more. Then I wrote
Okay.
some short story collection, Evil Eye and the Charm I wrote. That was my second book.
Mhm.
Then I wrote Bound in Love, again a short story collection. And then in 2017, I wrote a full length novel once again, Pishach. So Pishach
Mhm.
was this paranormal love story, which again
Okay.
did very well,
Mhm.
considering the genre because paranormal, people
Yeah.
love to read paranormal stories and all,
Yes.
and that too, I'm mixing it with romance. So Pishach was a kind
Make it more
of,
interesting.
if you see all my Amazon book pages,
Uh-huh.
Pishach is the one that got the biggest, I mean, the best kind of reviews. I think I
Okay.
should write more books. I'm just making a note to myself.
Yes.
So then, after, after that, I went on with Yakshini, and Yakshini became my biggest book.
Mhm.
It was also my first book to be traditionally published in a big way. Rupa took it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's a Rupa Publications book. They did an amazing job of
Mm.
placing Yakshini all over India, even
Yeah.
across internationally. I mean, Yakshini is available everywhere, and it became a
Mhm.
big seller. It
Okay.
was optioned for school. Things
Nice.
happened. Then after that I wrote Haunted, which was
Mhm.
a story of paranormal investigator adventures. So
Okay.
in that book, I wrote it along with Jaya Lani. Jaya Lani is a very famous paranormal investigator, and
Mhm.
these were 10 stories from his life.
Oh,
10 of the most scary experiences that he had. So he has visited
okay.
like hundreds of haunted locations across India. So this
Mhm.
book has stories from Bhangad, Kuldhara,
Okay, all
Lambidihar,
over.
yeah, like the freakiest
Yeah.
places that India has. Penguin published the book, and that propelled me into the big league.
Mm,
So to speak.
yeah.
In 2020, the pandemic year, another of my books came out that was The Spirits Talk to Me. Now, that was with another
Uh-huh.
paranormal investigator, Sarvajit Mohanty, and he's
Okay.
a paranormal investigator who solves these kinds of cases
Mm,
where strange things happen. People do not have any clue of why they're happening, like haunted houses, etc. So
mm,
again, 10 stories from his case files.
okay.
Then I wrote My Husband 2, the sequel to my initial book, which is going to be a trilogy. And right now, Rashi,
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 books coming up with various publishers. All of them were in a kind of block because of the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
years. So now
Yes.
everything is coming out together. So it's going to be a very,
Okay.
very busy time.
That's nice. That's nice. Really, like very, very inspiring. So, like, how did you enter this genre, like horror? How did that happen to you? Just by
I
chance, or you will have been like
and
writing forever on this?
horror has had a big influence on me
Yeah.
right from my youngest days.
Mm-hmm.
Even at home, like when I was growing up, when I was a child, my dad used to subtitle movies from Hindi to English for the overseas
Mm-hmm.
market. That
Okay.
was one of his things that he did. He was a
Mm-hmm.
freelance subtitlist.
Okay.
So one of his biggest clients were the Ramses. So horror stories were always there with him. I would sit
Okay.
next to my dad and see those posters and books that he used to
Mm,
get from the producers, and he used to
yes.
translate the movies from the scripts. I used to help him also. So
Mm,
I have actually subtitled movies like Dark Bangla and Virana when I
mm.
was just in grade 7 and 8.
Oh,
And at the same time, my dad was a big book collector also. So in our house, there was
okay.
no
Yeah.
censorship at all. We could
So you
read
have
any
literally
book
like
that we
grown up amongst the
yeah.
horror stories and horror movies.
So we could read any books that we wanted in the
Mm,
house. Nobody would tell us that don't read this book, don't read that book.
yeah.
And I remember reading Dracula, Frankenstein, and all very, very early on in my school days itself.
Yeah.
I did not get scared.
Okay.
Instead, I got
That's good.
fascinated. I got
Mm,
fascinated by that, that kind of the gothic environment
yeah.
atmosphere that these stories had.
You
I
did
wanted
not
to
get
write.
scared, but now you're scaring your readers with your stories.
Yeah. So in reading, I never got scared.
Mm,
In watching, sometimes yes. When I
yeah.
used to watch those horror movies, I used to get scared sometimes.
Mm,
But in reading, I actually enjoyed it, and
okay.
I felt it very immersive. Like
Mm,
this is the kind of world even I want to create. Okay,
okay.
so that went
There it
aside.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, because then I completed my graduation, my post graduation, and
Mm,
then I started a coaching institute where I was a teacher.
mm.
So my entire day would be spent teaching. I did that for 18 years of my life.
Oh, okay. Nice.
In 2014, when I decided to write a book, that time I just wrote the story. And then I
Mm,
did not I did not know things like genre at that time
yeah.
when I was just starting out.
Yes.
But Amazon, when I was uploading the book on KDP, it
Yeah. They
asks for
ask for it.
category. So then I thought that for my book, what is the best category? And I figured out that horror would be the best one. So
Okay.
I marked it as
Uh-huh.
horror. The book did well in horror. And
Mm.
that's how accidentally I found my space. Maybe the influences helped, and that's how it
Yes.
went.
And your first book is also getting republished now.
Yes, now it is getting reprinted, I would say,
Reprinted. Okay.
by yeah, Authors Inc. is doing that, and
Mm.
because there was this kind of thing when it is a self-published book, it's always a challenge to put your paperbacks out. How will you get the
Mm.
paperbacks out?
Yes.
Because Amazon does the ebook part very well.
Yeah.
Paperbacks, they either they will you don't have the source to do it, or you don't
Mm.
have the distribution, or then you do not have the margin. Like how will you manage it?
Yes.
There is this indie publishing house, Authors Inc.,
Mm.
who are
Yeah.
very good, very honest, candid at their work.
Mm.
They're very
Okay.
efficient. So yes, I have been. I even in 2015, I had a very short kind of stint with them, with Maya's new husband.
Mm.
Then we are doing it again, and we are bringing out a reprinted edition, a new version
Okay. Nice.
of Maya's new husband
The new
one and
look.
two. Yeah, that will come out in August.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the secret? Like, you are coming up with so many books. Like, you started just at 15, and now you're like with 12 books so far, and four like already in the pipeline. Like, there's so many writers who still struggle to complete their first manuscript. They're still struggling with their drafts. So, tell us the secret. How have you come so far?
If this was a kind of secret that could be spoken about and explained, then I think I would have sold it and made a lot of money out of it. But
True.
I don't know. I don't think there's any secret as such. It's
But is there like anything, any routine that you follow or
it's the passion that I have for it.
yeah.
It all begins from there.
Mm,
Like I told you, that I wrote my first book itself, Maya's New Husband, because
mm,
I felt very strongly that if I don't write
yes,
this book,
that
something will
matters.
remain incomplete in my life.
Mm,
Then I also have another feeling. I have this feeling like this is I'm talking from a very spiritual point of view here.
mhm. Okay.
I believe that stories are there all over. In the
Yeah.
universe, there are stories.
Yes.
They are there in the air, right? And some of us, we have this kind of a psychic sense to sense those stories. The stories speak to us
Okay, so you're
sometimes,
blessed
because
with that.
why do ideas come to only a few of us? Because
Yeah.
I believe that these ideas are floating around, and some
Mm,
of us are just better attuned to the cosmos, that we
yeah.
are able to get that idea, understand that idea. And when it happens, you become a kind of a chosen one, because you have this special
Nice.
idea we
Yeah.
work upon. And when you are the chosen one, it would be very wrong on
Mm,
your part
not to
to
do
not
that.
bring it to life. This, I
Nice.
don't believe this only for the writing community, but I
Mm,
believe this for everything, even
yeah.
for discoveries and inventions.
Mm,
Edison invented the light bulb after so many
yeah.
trials. Why? Because something was telling him that you are meant to do this. He had something
That's a
like
nice thought. You are the
60
chosen
failures
one.
before he
Yes.
actually invented that light bulb. So what was keeping him do that? Or
Correct.
maybe why did the apple fall on Newton's head only, and he had that idea that there is
Yeah.
something called gravity. Apples fall on so many people's heads, but he had that idea because there is something, some agency working
Mm,
that's telling us that you are meant to do this. And I believe that when that happens, you feel it very strongly. At least
mm.
for me, I
And
feel
then
it very
nothing can
strong.
stop you.
Yes. Now, being an author, I'm
Yeah.
always bombarded with ideas, right? Day in and day out.
Mm,
I'm a very observant person, so I'm always bombarded with ideas. But then there is one idea that comes out which tells
mm,
me, which stays with me, which,
mm.
kind of has a very strong connection. And then I know that
Yes.
this is the idea that I have to write on. I'll give you an example.
Mm,
Yakshini happened that way.
okay.
Now, Yakshini for me was, the idea came to me in a morning dream. We
Okay.
have these morning dreams when you
Yes.
wake up, but you don't get up.
Not yet, yet.
That
And
is
people
weird.
also say that these morning dreams actually come true.
Yeah, so that kind of a
You have proved
fugue
it.
state. So the idea of Yakshini came to me during that time.
Okay.
And I could actually see the story. I could see the village of Vatgaon, a
Oh.
girl growing up, and the girl having
Mm-hmm.
that kind of the Yakshini spirit inside her. And that
Mm,
I think within 2 days, I started writing the manuscript with just the idea
nice.
that came to me from that dream. Of course, I
Mm-hmm.
afterwards I put that social message of the Nirbhaya case and so many other things into the story. That
Mm-hmm.
was a later development stage,
Oh,
but the
yes.
spark of the idea came from there. So that idea,
Okay.
I cannot explain this, Rashi.
Mm.
If you ask me, I cannot explain this. But when it hit me, it was like a physical assault. That idea
You
is,
have to put that to
it's like
words.
that's how it
Nice,
happens.
nice. I would really wish that you such dreams keep coming up to you so we
They
get to
do.
read more stories.
They do all the time.
Yeah.
They do all the time. You only have to be very attentive and observant. See, what
Yes.
happens is if we shut down our mind, then these
Mm-hmm.
ideas will stop coming to you. So
Yeah.
you have to be receptive. You have to keep
Mm.
your brain open. Your signals have to be open. How do
Yeah.
we do that? By reading a lot,
Yeah, that's true.
by watching a lot of movies. I do watch a lot of
Yeah.
movies. I mean, you have to just manifest these things within you. So you have
Mm.
to keep yourself within that world. So I keep
Correct.
myself in the creative world. I don't detach myself from it. So
Mm.
every moment of my life, I'm doing something creative, something
Yeah.
constructive, something to
Okay.
improve myself in some way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
So, like, when do
wastefulness.
you write? Like, do you have a schedule that you follow, or whenever the story comes, you just
Um,
sit down and shut off from everything else?
you will be surprised that if I tell you that I don't write a lot every day, it's like just about 3 or 4 hours that I actually write.
That's a
But
lot.
those yeah, but it's not. See, writing is not just writing. It's
Yeah.
also outlining. It's also just thinking
Yes.
something.
Lots of planning goes into it.
Yes, yes. It's might be just shutting all the lights in the room and just sitting like this. It's possible that can be my
Sometimes you
writing.
just stare at the screen and you're just like, no, what am I going
Yeah.
to write now? There's so many
So
ideas roaming
earlier,
around in your mind, but you can't write.
when I was writing Maya's New Husband, the night
Mhm.
times were the best time for me to write. Post
Yes.
midnight. I would scare myself silly, and then I would know that I've written a good scene. But now, because I wake up early nowadays, so I cannot stay up very late at night. So now what I do is I write in this period from
Okay.
afternoon to like dinner time. So
Hmm.
this within this gap, I get 4 5 good hours.
Yeah.
3 4 good hours are good enough, and
Hmm.
that's what I utilize for my writing now.
Okay,
Mornings
nice.
I don't write much. Mornings is more about social media, emails, talking to
I thought your
people.
mornings are more about running and your fitness.
That's very early mornings.
Okay, very
Like
early morning.
by
So when
eight
did that
o'clock, my
start?
running
Like,
and all
when
is
did you
done.
start get into fitness? So seriously.
That that happened during the lockdown.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was always a kind of fitness enthusiast. Only thing
Hmm.
I did not take it up seriously.
Okay,
Uh,
you got time now.
I used to go to the gym and all even when I was in my 30s, but I never kept it up
Hmm.
constantly.
Yeah.
So what happened is in 2019, in 2019, I developed some kind of chest pains.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
that
went to
triggered.
a yeah, I went to a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a cardiologist, not even a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Directly, because when you have got a fear, then uh, you do that. So that very good doctor, very old, very revered. So
Mm-hmm.
he told that everything is very perfect with you. Your heart is
Mm-hmm.
perfect, is perfect. You can get a life insurance policy right now if you want. So he told me all that, but he told me that take care of your weight. That's piling
Mm-hmm.
on. So
Okay.
my weight had piled on. Seriously, my weight had piled on. Like I had gone up to 83 and 84 kgs, which was
Mm-hmm.
very much my weight, and 33% was the body fat.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the lockdown happened and everything was closed, even that started eating me mentally now because
Yes.
I could not go out and I was at home. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the time when I decided to take up fitness seriously. How do you do that
Mm-hmm.
when you're locked in the house? So I used YouTube videos. So there
Okay.
were many work along videos on YouTube. So
Uh-huh.
I would do that in the mornings also, in the evenings also, 2 hours
Okay.
each. Mornings
Mm.
2 hours, evening 2 hours, and we could do that
Okay.
because lockdown was going on. There's nothing else to do.
Yes.
I took up things like kickboxing and hit training, cardio
Mm-hmm.
training, everything I did in a very calculated, measured way. I
Mm-hmm.
controlled my eating and I lost about 16 to 17
Oh,
kgs
that's
within that.
nice.
I built up my stamina and now I
Mm-hmm.
run. So I've been running since around 1.5 year now. I run like
Mm.
30 to 40 kilometers is my
Yeah, that's
average per
that's what I
week.
see. Like you run like crazy.
I do that because now I enjoy it. Now it
Yeah.
is no longer about losing weight. That
Yes.
milestone has been crossed long back. I'm at an athletic
It has
body
come
weight
as a
now.
routine now.
Now it has become a routine. Now it's become
Mm.
like my writing. If I don't write, I become unstable. If I don't run, same way, I become
Same.
like, what is that word for that? I become grumpy. It happens to me.
Yeah.
It keeps me younger, both in
Yeah.
terms of,
And
I
they
mean,
also balance
physically.
each other, like writing and fitness, they go hand in hand.
They do because both of them are very meditative practices.
Mm.
I suppose
Yeah.
writing is also cathartic. When I
Yes.
get very angry, I write the best scenes. That is because I am just purging my anger into my words. So my mind gets detoxified, right? So
Yeah.
same way it is about running. When
Mm-hmm.
something is gnawing at me, when
Yeah.
something is irking me,
Yeah.
when I
You
hit
run
this
far.
road, I just forget everything. And now I've taken up yoga also. I've
Oh,
just taken
good.
it up. I'm very, very, very rookie amateur at it,
Yeah.
but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the benefits
Nice.
that it's providing. So far, I
Mm.
did not take up yoga because I had a very different view of it. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm fitter, I'm more flexible, I
You
can
can do
do.
that. Yeah.
I can do it, and I enjoy it. Maybe I'll
Nice.
post some pictures of it soon. I don't know.
Sure,
Let me
sure. We are
get
waiting for that.
better.
So coming back to your books, like as you said, some of your books are now moving to screens. So how is that experience? Like all over, it's like such a dream for so many authors. So how did that
Fabulous.
happen?
When we signed on, it was a fabulous experience because
Mm,
Maya's New Husband is signed on for
mm,
a screen adaptation. Yakshini is signed for it. Haunted is signed. What the Eyes Don't See, which is one of my books on Wattpad, that is also
Mm-hmm.
signed and it has been
Okay.
extended for the third year now for the screen option. And yeah, one of the stories from my short collection, Ringa Ringa Roses,
Yeah.
has also been signed. So a lot of books have been signed. Now this signing, when I say signed, I mean it's an option. So option in the case, in the sense that a producer has liked the story and
Mm-hmm.
bought it.
Okay.
Still, there's a lot of work to be done. The
Mm.
books are novels, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be adapted for screen, a pictures to be
Screenwriting
made.
and
You have to
mm.
get a channel to come into it. So all these things take time. This is what I
Yes.
figured out after being into. But it's such a feel good factor, I tell
Yeah,
you, because
definitely.
now a producer putting his word and his money on my story, and an
Mm.
entire conference room sitting and discussing the story and characters.
Yeah.
That's an experience that I think every author should have that. I wish
Yes.
every author would have that experience. Again, when you go to a channel studio, because
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
visited all channel offices because of my stories. Sometimes narrations happen, so we have to go.
Mm-hmm.
And when those people at the channels who have made
Yeah.
such fabulous shows, when
Mm-hmm.
they stand up to greet you because you are an author, and when you see that your book is on their table,
Yeah.
exhilarating. You cannot explain that
Yes.
kind of thing in words. I believe that the day that my story will actually come on screen, I'll probably explode
Mm-hmm.
with that. But these small things on the way also are something that you cannot. It's an
Yes.
indescribable thing.
Definitely. You feel good then when your work is getting appreciated.
I think there's so many milestones that we cross. Like the
Yes.
first time you get your book published,
Yeah.
first time that your book comes in the store, the first
Mm.
time that you see your name on that cover, the first time
Right.
that you are invited at a lit fest and you're sitting on a stage and
Yeah.
talking to so many readers, the first time somebody asks your autograph, that, and in
Exactly.
your book,
All special moments.
I tell you, these moments are so
Yeah.
cherishable. Like, you don't forget those. There was one
Definitely.
reader, a very kind reader, and this was
Mm-hmm.
back in 2015 when I just wrote Maya's New Husband, and it came out, and that person was so. I mean, I can't describe this. He was so effusive in his praise that I
Uh-huh.
love this story. He sent me a gift. He sent me two nice fountain pens. I've kept them. So yeah, like
Yeah.
that. And plus a letter. That is my
Mm-hmm.
first fan letter that I got. And he actually wrote it,
Mm.
not typed or
Okay.
anything. Actually
Yeah.
wrote it
Handwritten
with his
letter.
hand. So a handwritten
Nice.
letter.
How
So,
special.
something really, yeah, very special.
Exactly. People love the stories that you come up with and they just love your work. So, like, what are
Yes,
the elements you think there should be in a horror story to make it a good story?
I can tell you about what I look for
Yeah.
because the stories can be written in many ways.
Yes.
So where I start is I always start with a character. For me, the
Mm-hmm.
character is important. Now,
Okay.
different authors have different ways in this, and even I try to vary sometimes when the story demands for it. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can start a story with a character, like this is the character, this is what her world is, and this is
Mm-hmm.
how the story will progress. So
Okay.
the character for me comes first. That is my ingredient. Best
Mm-hmm.
example for that is Yakshini, because Yakshini
Yeah.
came from the character of Meenakshi, who has a
Mm-hmm.
Yakshini spirit in her, and she's growing up in this patriarchal society. So that was the
Yeah.
character for Maya's new
Mm-hmm.
husband, also character, because it was a school teacher who is
Yeah.
married to a person who is a serial killer,
Killer.
a
Okay.
closet serial killer. What will be the dynamic, right? So that was the story
Yeah.
again. Now I'm writing a story which it's about a woman who has come back from the dead, and
Oh,
she has come
okay.
back, and her family system is a joint family system.
Uh-huh.
So what are the repercussions when she comes back? So that kind of story.
It's
So
difficult to
the
read your
character
books at night then.
so the characters are the first thing that I want.
Mhm.
Second, I want is that's a conflict. Like, what is she? She, I'm saying because most of my characters are female,
Yeah.
which I write. I mostly tend to think that way. And yeah, the conflict is what is the thing that is stopping her from getting what she wants in life? What is the big
Mm-hmm.
obstruction? What is the big
Okay.
hurdle that my character has to cross? So
Mm.
that conflict is what comes second to me.
Okay.
Third, and this thing almost comes automatically, that is the premise, the setting,
Mm.
the
Okay.
timeline, like where the story has to be placed. Like when
Mm-hmm.
it was Yakshini for me, it was just a kind of a given scenario that I have to set this in a rural village in Maharashtra,
Yeah.
because it could have been nowhere else, that story.
Mm.
So the setting, it speaks to me. The
Yeah.
story tells me where we have to set it.
Okay.
So, that setting I don't think about. A lot of horror writers, I'm talking about the new ones, aspiring ones, who are, not really established and still they're trying to write something.
Mm-hmm.
They make the biggest mistake by first thinking of the setting. This also
Mm.
happens in our film industry a lot.
Yeah.
They will give you a guideline, set a story in Shimla for me. It should be a
Mm-hmm.
horror story. No, it doesn't come that way.
Okay.
Your character has to come, your conflict has to come, and then it will be decided like where will
Where
be
we
the
can
best.
set it up. Yeah.
If you give a kind of a cookie cutter template,
Mm.
like it was a story that is set in
Yeah.
Shimla, it has to have a ghost, it has to have a church building. If you give all these,
Mm.
what they say, markers,
Mm-hmm.
the story does not stay organic.
Yeah.
For me, I try to build the story, let my characters tell me the story. That's it.
Mm.
I
Nice.
don't know how to explain this.
Yeah.
But once you have a very strong character, you know what the problem is in this character's life, then the character will start telling you the story. That this is
Mm-hmm.
what is happening. So I just am a puller of strings, and these
Mm-hmm.
characters, my puppets, they are the ones running the show for me. I just
Okay.
have to pull the strings correctly.
Nice. So, like, you have written so many stories till now. So, which one do you think is your favorite or your favorite character, if I say?
Tough. Okay. Character Bhaskar Sadachari from
Uh-huh.
Maya's New Husband.
Okay.
In Maya's husband, that is Bhaskar Sadachari, who is
Who's
a
a
serial
serial
killer,
killer? Mm-hmm.
but in ordinary time, he's a school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So the dichotomy of that character is also a common man, and
Yeah.
plus he's criminal at night. So it was fascinating to write, and because
Yeah.
that was my also my first book,
Mm.
so he was also my trial and error, because that was where I
Yes.
was actually trying to figure out how to make a good character. So
Yeah.
Bhaskar Sadachari was kind of my teacher also. So that character wise, that is my best story. If you talk about story,
Yeah.
uh, then I think I will choose any short story from Right Behind You, my collection.
Mm. Okay.
So Right Behind You has this mix of stories
Mm-hmm.
from different subgenres of horror. So I
Okay.
have paranormal horror, supernatural horror in it. There is serial killer horror, there is gore, there is
Oh.
fantasy horror, there is everything. So, it's a mix. And I really enjoyed writing Right Behind You because it
Mm.
was a kind of teaching for me also, like how
Okay.
to do it. In that, I really enjoy the stories like The Death Drum,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a very psychological horror tale where
Yeah.
we have a woman living in a very small kind of a hut like house, and
Mm-hmm.
there is this blue drum that her husband brings
Okay.
uh, store water. The drum
Uh-huh.
has been brought from somebody else's house, and this
Mm.
woman comes to know that in that house there was somebody who had been murdered, and
Okay.
then she starts thinking that that person's body was hidden in this drum
Oh God.
before it was discarded, and that is the reason the drum they gave away. And now
Oh
that
my
drum is in
goodness.
my house, and that murdered person's body, ghost is still in
Yeah.
that drum. So very
Okay.
psychological. Now
Yeah.
suppose if such a kind of thing is there in your house,
My goodness.
you're going to be mind blown. So this really, yeah. And I also love The Clay Mother, which is
Mm-hmm.
from Ringa Ringa Roses, my other short story collection. So in that,
Mm-hmm.
there's this 8-year-old boy who loses his mother, and
Mm-hmm.
his mother, who was the only person who loved him in his entire big family. So
Mm-hmm.
his mother dies. So what he does is he makes a clay doll in the shape of his mother, and
Okay.
then his mother's spirit comes in the clay doll, and it's
Mm.
the story about, it's a
Nice.
bittersweet kind
Yeah.
of horror story where the mother's spirit comes in the doll and things happen after that.
Mm.
So yeah, then that story is also taken up for a movie.
Nice. Nice. I'm sure like there'll be more that we'll get to see on the
So
screens.
if you see, mostly my horror is on the psychological side.
Yeah.
So I do take a lot of
Definitely.
supernatural and paranormal elements,
Mm-hmm.
but horror cannot be written without getting into the mind of the characters. Because you had asked me this
Mm.
question,
Yeah.
I need to completely understand the psychology of my
Correct.
characters.
Yes. Okay, so what tips would you like to give to our new writers who are dreaming to like get it big and even come to the screens or come up with a line of books or a series? Some very good
First
tips
and
from you.
foremost, complete the manuscript. Don't procrastinate on it, because a lot of people, they think that let me plot properly, get all the ideas. I think it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. If you want to write a novel, just start writing a novel.
Yeah.
You start writing it, and the ideas will come, everything will come. Take
Mm-hmm.
your first draft as your kind of outline only.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will be discarding your first draft. I'm sure we all do that. We
Yeah.
never publish our first drafts. So the first draft is a kind of outline only. So the first draft you write, then improve it in the second draft, remove the things that you want. That's how I do it. For me,
Mm-hmm.
the first draft is just me telling myself the story.
Yeah.
When it comes, don't think about publishing, marketing,
Yes.
book design, all these things. Don't think about this when you're
Mm-hmm.
writing the manuscript. When you're writing the
Correct.
manuscript, only write the manuscript. Try to make the story as much better as you can. If you think that something has been done in some other story before,
Mm-hmm.
then that should definitely not be in your story.
Yeah.
Because our stories have to be original, and it has to be something that at least you have never heard of before. That's
Mm-hmm.
very important. When you come to the marketing side, the marketing of the book is the trickiest part. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that. But for that, you have to be savvy. You should not,
Mm-hmm.
I think the spamming does not work.
Yeah.
Talk about your book in a way that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, rather than just telling people, read my book, read my book, read my book, I think authors should tell them why they should
Why
read
they
your
should
book.
read. Yeah.
What is there in that book that they will miss if they don't read it?
Yeah.
Give them that unmissable factor.
Yes.
Put that kind of sense in them. Like when I promoted Maya's New Husband,
Yeah.
I told them about everything that the book got in the other reviews. Like people
Mm.
said that this is the biggest book of contemporary Indian horror,
Yeah.
never before written like this. I passed it on to my readers that this is the kind of comments that this book is getting.
Feedback is, yeah, it's
Not
getting.
reading Maya's New Husband, you are missing the contemporary book of Indian horror.
Yes.
And it somehow worked. So that's it.
Mm.
And I also
Nice.
sold my characters. People don't
Mm-hmm.
sell their characters, people sell their
Yeah.
books. I
Books.
sold Harpal Sadachari in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Come and read this character who is like a serial killer at night and a normal person in the
Yeah.
mornings. And how will his story be with his wife? So people wanted to
Mm.
read the character
Yeah.
there. Actually, also I
That
sold
creates
from
more
the
interest.
yeah. So people
Mm.
don't do that. A lot of authors,
Mm.
they will only paste the cover of the book and say, read, read,
Yeah.
read. It's not working that way. What is the
Uh,
USP?
correct.
And
Nice, nice.
also,
I'm sure
very
the writers are listening to all the tips that you're sharing now.
one last sentence. If you're
Yes.
honest about your book and you're honest about your writing, it will
Mm-hmm.
work. That's it.
Yeah,
Then it will carry on your own.
definitely. And we can see that happening with me. So I think we'll end with today's question. And as we discussed that Neil has come up with 12 books so far. So I'll give a very easy question. You have to name any one of his books in the comments below. I'm sure you must have heard the answer. If not, just go watch the episode again and definitely comment so you can win the mega prizes at the end. And thank you so much, Neil, for your time and sharing all the details with us. It was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much, Vashi, for having me on. And I enjoyed talking to you. It's
Yeah.
always great to talk about my books and also somebody
Yes.
who's also an enthusiast of books. Thanks so much. May you keep doing this for a long time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.